When you're trying to align two protein sequences, how do you actually score the match? I mean, not all amino acid substitutions are created equal. Some changes are super common in evolution, while others are pretty rare. To figure this all out, we need a system. And that's where two of the biggest names in bioinformatics come in, PAM and BLOSUM.
So, a scoring matrix is basically just a lookup table. That's it. It gives a score to every possible amino acid swap. If a substitution is likely from an evolutionary standpoint, say swapping one similarly charged amino acid for another, it gets a positive score. But if it's an unlikely swap, like replacing a tiny amino acid with a really bulky one, it gets a negative score. These scores are the secret sauce that helps alignment algorithms find the most biologically meaningful match.
Okay, so where do these scores actually come from? Well, the first big idea came from Margaret Dayhoff, who is a true pioneer in bioinformatics. Her approach, which we call PAM, is all about building a theoretical model of how proteins evolve over time.
What Dayhoff and her team did was brilliant. They looked at protein families that were really similar. We're talking at least 85% identical. They counted up every single mutation they saw and used that data to build their model. The core idea was that if you understand the changes happening over a short evolutionary time, you can mathematically extend or extrapolate that to predict what would happen over much longer periods.
Now here's how the PAM scale works. A PAM1 matrix represents a tiny evolutionary step, just one accepted mutation for every 100 amino acids. To figure out scores for more distant relationships, you just apply that change again and again. So a PAM 250 matrix is what you'd grab to compare very distant relatives. The rule is super simple. The higher the PAM number, the greater the evolutionary distance you're looking at.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about the other major player, the BLOSUM matrix. Years after PAM came out, Stephen and Georgia Hinikoff came up with a new way of doing things. They thought, instead of building a model and extrapolating, why don't we just look directly at a huge amount of real aligned protein data?
So the Hinikoffs analyzed thousands of these conserved regions, or blocks, from hundreds of different protein families. You know, these are the really critical parts of a protein that don't change much. By directly counting every substitution they found in these blocks, from both close and distant relatives, they built their matrices empirically. That just means it's based purely on observation, with no evolutionary model needed.
Okay, this brings us to the single most confusing thing about these two systems. It seems totally logical, right? The numbering should work the same way. If you want to find distant relatives, you just pick a high BLOSUM number, just like you would with PAM. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, nope, and this is the one thing you have to remember. The logic behind BLOSUM numbering is completely backwards compared to PAM.
Here's the key to understanding this. The number in a BLOSUM matrix, like BLOSUM 80, actually refers to the maximum identity percentage of the sequences used to create it. So, to make BLOSUM 80, any sequences that were more than 80% identical were all lumped together as one. This means the matrix is best at finding similarities between closely related sequences. So, for very similar proteins, use a high number like BLOSUM 80, and for distant ones, use a low number like BLOSUM 45.
All right, we've gone through the theory. PAM is a model, BLOSUM is based on real data. PAM numbers go up with distance, BLOSUM numbers go down. So in the real world, which one should you actually use for your analysis?
This table lays it all out perfectly. PAM is based on that predictive model, extrapolating from a pretty small data set of close relatives. BLOSUM, on the other hand, is built from direct observations of a much bigger and more diverse data set. And because it's based on more data and captures changes between all sorts of relatives directly, BLOSUM matrices, and especially BLOSUM 62, have really become the go-to standard today.
And believe me, this isn't just some academic trivia. When you run a search in a tool like BLAST, the scoring matrix is the engine that drives your results. If you pick the wrong one, you could miss important evolutionary links or get results that just aren't statistically sound. Getting it right is key to turning a sequence search into a real discovery.
So, here's the bottom line. Your choice of matrix really depends on how similar you think your sequences are. But if you're not sure where to even start, BLOSUM 62 is the safe, reliable, all-purpose default for a very good reason. It's the trusted workhorse of sequence alignment. For more quick explainers like this one, make sure to subscribe to BioinfoBytes.